You never want to leave money on the table when it comes to really thinking through how to properly and adequately price for a job. Hey y'all, welcome back. Now y'all already know what it is. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So let's jump right into it. If you're new here, my name is Nadia. I am the owner of ClickPop Studio, and we are a colorfully loud creative agency for bold brands. And today we're going to be talking about how you can prepare for a pitch meeting and also what to do when you get there. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's start off with pitching in general. So by now, if you are preparing for a pitch meeting, you have contacted an ideal client that you would love to work with. You've sent them some sort of capability deck and they're interested in your services. Now, if you don't know what a capability deck is, click this link up here. I do have a video that discusses what it is and what goes into it. So definitely check that out. If your ideal client has responded to your email after reading through your capability deck and they're interested in your services, there are a few things that you need to do in order to prepare for that type of meeting. The first thing that you need to have is your pricing structure. You need to understand what your day rate is, as well as your fee per image or per video if you've already produced images for that particular client just on a whim to see if they'd be interested in your services. And if they want to purchase said images, they would need to know what your fee is per image. So it really just depends on how you pitch. I have a friend that's really interested in getting into more marketing, social media work, and they took it upon themselves to go do some free content for an ideal client of theirs just on a whim. And they use those images in their capability deck as well as their pitch email to introduce themselves as well as show that company or that client what they can do for them. Now, the client loved that work so much, they're interested in possibly purchasing those images. And so if you're ever in a space where the work that you've already done is of interest to a particular client, you need to understand how you want to price that out so that you can receive proper compensation. Now, when it comes to larger clients, especially corporate clients, you fall into that realm of licensing, which is a very good space to be in, but it's a little bit treacherous trying to figure out how to navigate through it. And so if you have an idea of your pricing structure, you can some way figure out how to navigate enough to get through negotiations. Now, later on in your journey, you will want to have a lawyer so that you can have someone that can advise you through contracts as well as like licensing and usage rights and all of that. But when you're just starting out, you at least want to know how to price your work in order to be fairly compensated. So when we're talking about day rates, you can start off by breaking down the entire scope of your process. So let's say you produced a gallery of lifestyle content that took about 10 hours to do, and you pitch those images to a client and you share that with a potential client so that they can have the opportunity to learn more about you as well as understand your services and what you could do for them. Now, if they're interested in that and they reach out to you and they want to know what your rates are, you want to know where to start from that. And it's really difficult to sift through that ocean because most people say, charge what you're worth. And that's a statement that I really just don't like because it's so vague. What do you mean? What should I charge? You really want to focus on your quality of work, how long it takes you to do it, and what you need in order to accomplish that job. That to me is the beginning stages of figuring out your pricing structure. Now, when it comes to something like product photography, it's very labor intensive. There are a lot of moving parts to producing one solid image. And so I can really sift through and figure out how long it takes, how many images I can produce in a day to really figure out what my number would be. Let's say you want to capture e-commerce images. Now, I've seen images priced at $25 all the way up to $300 per image. But let's say you're still at the beginning/intermediate stage and you want to stick to that under $100 mark. Let's say that potential client wants you to produce 100 e-commerce images. 85 times 100 is $8,500. So basically you would make $8,500 for that project. Now, if that 100 images takes you a full day to do, let's say 8 to 10 hours, then you have a day rate for that particular service. Once you do that job, you can understand all of the nuances and everything that goes into it. And maybe during that one job, you realize, oh, $85 per image is not enough for all the work that I'm doing. And then you can figure out how to up your price or lower it depending on what you go through in that process. That's how you begin to really figure out how to price your work. Again, that number needs to match the quality of work that you produce in the final deliverables. So that's a really simple way to really structure your pricing. And so when you have those solid numbers and combine them with the amount of content that you can produce in one day, that's when you start to figure out what your day rate would be. Now, oftentimes jobs aren't really that simple. Oftentimes a client may want something more customized. They may want video mixed with some lifestyle stuff, mixed with some models, and then you really have to figure out what that is. I have different types of images that I produce priced at a certain amount. So even when I combine everything, it still comes up to a solid number. And that number, whatever it is never below my base rate. And that's something else I really want to talk to you about. You need to figure out what your base rate would be. And when I say base rate, I'm referring to a number, a price point that you would never be paid below. So let's say my cost of living expenses all equal up to around $3,000. That's my base rate, and I will not be taking a job under that $3,000 mark because essentially I'd be working for free. I'm not making any money off of that particular job because it's not really covering my base essentials. So whatever your cost of living expenses, depending on what you're doing for this particular job, it doesn't necessarily have to be your full-time job, even if it's a part-time job. If that part-time job, this part-time hobby, if it has the potential to pay your essential bills and you have clients that are willing to pay your rate, then you have a base rate. It's as simple as that. But you need to figure out what that base rate will be so that you have some type of map to go on when clients are approaching you with services. Often in this pricing space, it's a game of chess when it comes to negotiating things with your clients. Sometimes they fill you in on their budget, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they want you to reveal your numbers first. And as long as you have an understanding of, again, your quality of work, the amount of hours it takes you to do that work, what it requires for you to do that work, as well as how much content you can produce in that one day, you already have an understanding of how to price adequately so that you can be compensated properly for a job. So just keep that in mind. Come up with a number, break it down, and then do it again if it doesn't work for you. But again, your number needs to match the quality of work that you're currently producing. You will get there eventually, making the big bucks. We all want to make the big bucks, but you got to start somewhere. So don't try to get greedy, because once those discrepancies come in with your work not being priced adequately, then you're basically ruining your standing with potential clients. You're ruining your value of word of mouth for business, and you're losing out on other jobs and other potential opportunities. Please keep that in mind. Okay, so now that we have the breakdown and understanding the day rate and pricing rate per image or per video, the second thing that you're going to want to focus on is listening in that meeting. Because you already have an understanding of your business, your services, and how you want to price things, it's your job to really listen to that client in the meeting to understand what they're looking for. You need to be listening to social cues so that you can understand the scope of work, if you're going to need to hire assistants, if you're going to need more than one day to do these things. Because again, your client can want everything in the world, but if you yourself can't produce everything in the world by yourself, then they're going to have to be willing to compensate you for additional items or additional outsourcing that you would need in order for you to fulfill that job. And so it's up to you to, like I said, really listen in on what that client has to say. You can ask questions and take notes to really figure out how you want to move throughout that conversation. And then when it's time for you to give them a ballpark number or say, okay, based on what I've said, what would your rate be for this? You have an idea of what this job could possibly cost. Now, in this meeting, you'll talk about money in general. A lot of times you'll talk around money because again, in that game of chess, oftentimes clients will wait until you produce a number, until you tell them what you can do. And so in a way, you need to be vague a little bit so that you can get as much information from them, and they're going to be a little bit more vague to get a little bit more information from you. It's that game of chess, that tit for tat, that game of chicken. But again, it's up to you to understand everything about your services and what you're actually willing to do. Now, I do not suggest in meetings like this that you give that client a hard number. If someone says, okay, based on this conversation, can you tell me what your service would be? I do not suggest that you say, oh, I could do all this for $7,000. Flat fee, $7,000. Never do that because there's so many things that will pop up later on so many other expenses that will pop up later on that you did not and will not account for until they happen. And you never want to lock yourself into a flat number, because they also know that other factors may come into play. And so I advise in that meeting to say, you know what, I have an idea of where that range would be, but let me take a day and really think about everything that you said, and then I'll send over an estimate that goes over everything that's discussed, and it'll have a full breakdown of the entire project as well as things that I would need in order to produce this job, and then we can discuss that price. We can discuss that number. That sentence, that statement alone gives you a little bit of control to put everything on pause so that you can give yourself time to really process everything, really think through the job, get out of that pressure cooker of them staring at you, wanting you to say something, so that you can take time, really figure out that job, and then send them the numbers. It's okay for you to do that. You do not have to jump on that job, give them a number to appease them because you're really eager to do that job. You should never do that. You should never, never, never do that, because oftentimes when you're in that space, again, you're not thinking about other factors that come into play, and you're leaving money on the table. You never want to leave money on the table when it comes to really thinking through how to properly and adequately price for a job. And so take that time, go back home, figure out your pricing structure, really think about the job, look at your notes, and then really structure out what that price is. And if that number looks right to you, then send that estimate later on by end of day, let's say that next day, and then wait for them to respond. If they're really interested, they will respond. If the number is too high and they're willing to negotiate, they'll work with you through phone, through email, to really figure out a number that works best for the both of you. Now, if you never hear from them again, then 9 times out of 10, they either found someone else to work with or they look for someone else to lowball themselves, which is also great that you missed out on the opportunity. You will miss out on a little bit of money in the very beginning, but it will help you tremendously to avoid so much work, so much unnecessary work without proper compensation. Now, to each his own, you can take any job that you want, but these few steps that I've been talking about will help you to really prepare yourself to make the kind of money that you want to make for the services that you're providing. Again, you're running the show. You are the service provider. Now, the inquiries and the interest from clients is very exciting. It shows that your business is interesting. It shows that your business has the potential for growth. But it's up to you to control that conversation and slow it down so that you can think through the entire process, so that you can give out the information that you need to give out, so that, again, you can price things out to be compensated properly. And if you're talking to a client that is unwilling to give you that time, that breath of space, then again, those are signs that that's potentially a client that you do not want to work with, because they're already showing signs of not respecting your boundaries. When you're working with serious businesses, serious brands, people that understand marketing, people that understand how things need to work in order to get things done for campaigns, for photo shoots, for marketing, all of that. They understand that time needs to be taken. They understand that further meetings need to be had. They understand that you have to wait for estimates. It's always that hurry up and wait. And you never want to leave yourself on the end where you're hurrying all the way on the other side where you're not getting paid the kind of money you want to get paid. And so, yeah, that is my 2 cents on the matter when it comes to preparing for a pitch meeting and also what to do during that pitch meeting. If you have any questions, or again, if you want to learn more about a capability deck or a pitch deck, again, click this link above. I have created a full-on video showing you what is in a pitch deck and a capability deck, how to make it, as well as why it's important. So definitely check that out. If you are in the space of navigating through negotiating and pitching your services to companies or clients, and you want some advice or you have any questions, hit me in the comments below. I'm here to answer any questions if need be. If you have a potential concern or a question that you want a video on, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. I'll gladly make a video on that. I love talking about the business of photography, or just business in general, because I do feel like this particular advice works on all aspects of entrepreneurship. And yeah, guys, that's all for now. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to learn more and see more videos popping up about business and behind the scenes photography fun. We post videos every week on this side of the interwebs. And it's always just a good time. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. And yeah, that's all for now. Until next time, bye.